Good afternoon. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about what it was like playing for Dick Dixon. After making my video the other day about deciding to not play basketball anymore, at least not to the level that I've tried to play for 54 years, somebody said something about Dixon and did I have any stories about there. So I do have a few, and I thought I'd share with them, share those with you now. So I guess the one thing I would say is that Dick Dixon changed my life. And you may think it's about basketball, and it's actually not. So you have to understand that Dick did like to talk to the team and ask for our input. And during my senior year, one of the things he asked about was there was going to be an assembly, and he must have ordered a cake or something. He wanted to make sure the cheerleaders knew that we appreciated them at our games, and they went to the away games. And so he said, we're gonna present a cake, and we need one of you to do the presentation. Whereupon Jim Brooks immediately said, let's have Tom do it. And everybody, of course, said, sure. They voted, and of course I won because no one else wanted to do it. And up until that point, I would tell you that I was not a particularly verbal person. I had Bill May as my older brother, and Bill talked enough for both of us, so I was relatively quiet. But when Dick asked that I do that, I didn't have a choice, so I got up, and I have no idea what I said, but I did obviously present the cake. And then I believe there were at least two other occasions, at least the very final one where the team got up and there were some awards presented, but I think we gave a gift to Dixon. And of course, once again, somehow I got coerced into doing that, so I did that. And then even later, there was going to be a banquet, a winter sports banquet at my old junior high, which was Hopkins Junior High. And they asked if one of the players would want to speak, and next thing I know, Dixon asked me, and so I went and gave a talk at the Hopkins Junior High Winter Sports Awards. I have no idea what I talked about, but I discovered that it was okay to talk in public, and I probably haven't shut up since then. So really the way Dixon changed my life was, getting me to speak and realizing that maybe I had something to say or I liked to do it. So that was probably the biggest thing that actually made a difference, was that. As far as the stories relating to basketball, I've got a few, and I'll go through a few of them. So first of all, after I started playing in junior high, my first year at the high school was on the JV team, which meant I played for Daryl Loken. And I had a pretty good year. I was named the outstanding sophomore. But if you played for Daryl, one of the things you remember is that he would, when you had a timeout or something, we're all sitting on the bench, which is really the first row of the bleachers, and Loken is kind of squatting on the other side of us, talking to us, and he had this way of smacking players on the thigh or on the knee, and it'd be, when you try and make a point, and he would just whack you right on the knee, just above the knee, and left a bruise. I mean, nowadays probably you couldn't get away with that, but I can just remember, everybody can remember that. If you played for Daryl Loken and you didn't get a tap on the knee, you weren't trying. So then, after a pretty successful year, I thought I was going to play a fair amount my junior year, and I didn't. Mostly because I was playing behind Robert Failer, who was the greatest rebounder in the history of Aberdeen High School. As far as I know, he still probably holds the record for most rebounds in a season, although McGivens might have beaten that, I don't know. I do know that in one game he had 33 rebounds that I watched, which was pretty amazing. But one of the games I do remember my junior year was the Hookwind game over there. And it was one of the last games of the year. It may have been the last regular season game. And I was sitting on the bench in my usual spot next to Dick Hoff, the late, great Dick Hoff. He and I sat on the bench and many times tried to outguess Dixon in his strategy, like, oh, we should call timeout now or whatever. And as it was a really tight game, the Hookwind Square Garden, as they like to call it, was packed. The crowd was going crazy. Robert Failer, had 3 fouls as we entered the fourth quarter, and quickly, like the first possession of the fourth quarter, he got a foul, and nobody's really still thinking, it's 4, but he's going to be careful. And he went down to the other end, and he got an offensive foul. So I very distinctly remember this. I'm turning my head this way to talk to Hoff about, and I didn't even realize that was Robert's 5th foul. And Hoff is looking this way, and the coaches are over here. So I've got my head turned from the coaches in the heat of the moment, and in the din and the noise, Dick is saying to me, "You're going to go in," but I can't hear him. And all of a sudden I feel somebody grab my warm-ups from behind and jerk me to my feet. And I believe it was Loken telling me I'm going in the game. So there's 7 minutes left in the game. I haven't played the whole game. I haven't played a lot that year. I certainly haven't played in this kind of situation where it's backed. I don't remember a lot about it except that I got quite a few rebounds. I remember that. I made a bucket at the end off a rebound, of course, because no one was going to give me the ball and actually expect me to shoot it that way. And we won. And so that was quite the deal. I remember that and, floating on cloud 9 a little bit. My senior year, there were a number of memorable games and situations with Dixon. I already talked about how he'd get me to talk. But I do remember a couple of the games. The Timberline games, they were a relatively new school. I think they'd been new the year before, but they had some really talented players. A guy named Greg Champlin, who later went on and played in the University of Denver. He was 6'7", really good player. But we beat him both times. The second one up there was pretty memorable. We beat him by 20, and no one expected that, and we played really well. The Tumwater game up there, we were down 10 points going into the fourth quarter, and we had pressed them, and in the third quarter they shredded our press, and we're up 10 going into the last quarter, and we came back. And I remember it again was just crazy loud. We were up 2, and I got a rebound and a putback off a free throw and made it. And the place was so crazy, I got fouled. I didn't even know it. I was at the other end of the court. The referees are whistling the whistles, telling me to come up and shoot the free throw, which I missed, of course. I say of course. I wasn't a bad free throw shooter, but I did miss. But the whole thing was, in the last minute, once we got the lead, Brad Fewer made 4 free throws in the last 40 seconds. And all I remember thinking is, I want him shooting it, not me. But that was, I think we wound up winning by 1. That was a pretty crazy game.